Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the information session for the Ontario Music Investment Fund, or OMIF for short. We're now kicking off the second year of delivering these information sessions virtually. My name is Ward Diltz, and I'll be joined by my colleague, Aisha Wickham. We are two of Ontario Music Office's 3 program consultants. Aisha and I will be co-presenting today on the OMIF Music Industry Initiative Stream for Global Market Development for Music Managers. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Ontario Creates is an agency of the government of Ontario that facilitates economic development, investment, and collaboration in Ontario's creative industries, including the music, book, magazine, film, television, and interactive digital media sectors. For today's session, the presentation will take approximately 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for your questions. We'll have our cameras off for the presentation, and we'll turn them back on for the Q&A portion. In order to best manage the Q&A period, we ask that you please type your question into the Q&A box at any time during the presentation, and our colleague Noah Gruner, program coordinator with the Ontario Music Office, will help filter the questions at the end of the presentation. Please keep your questions as relevant to overall audience as possible. For questions that are unique or specific to your company, we just ask that you follow up with us after the session so we can provide a more tailored response to your particular situation. If a question comes to you after the session, you can contact us later by email or phone. After the session, we will be posting this presentation on the MII GMD page of our website for your quick reference. But we must reiterate the importance of reviewing the guidelines in detail. This slide presentation does not replace the guidelines. Now I'm going to throw it over to Aisha to get us started.
Thank you very much, Ward. So in 2020 and 21 program year, the OMIF replaced the former Ontario Music Fund, and it reflects current government objectives. Broadly, the OMIF is intended to provide targeted economic development investment to the province's vibrant and diverse music industry, with a strong focus on supporting company and industry growth and developing emerging artists. The program's 3 streams are tailored to different parts of the industry. OMIF has some key goals that are important to keep in mind when you're preparing your application. The program's focus is on supporting high potential music companies and investing in their long-term growth while maximizing ROI for the province and increasing opportunities for emerging talent by targeting support at critical stages of artists' careers. Some of the anticipated outcomes include creating jobs and increasing revenue, profits, and private investment in the province, developing content or intellectual property for domestic and international markets that will lead to sustained revenues and jobs in the province, and increasing Ontario's profile internationally by helping to support the discovery and talent and development of breakthrough artists. The OMIF is designed to support companies across the music ecosystem in Ontario. There are 3 program streams that support different parts of the industry. The music creation stream is focused on supporting music companies that take risks in developing talent and bringing it to market through activities like recording, marketing and promotion, touring, and publishing. That program stream launched on April 29th and has a July 15th deadline. The live music stream is focused on supporting live music companies that promote and present music events featuring Canadian artists, including music festivals and concert series. This stream will launch in late summer. The Music Industry Initiatives, or MII stream, is focused on supporting music industry trade associations and music service organizations for activities with broad music industry benefit, such as professional development and training, and export activities, industry analysis or data gathering, and to build regional capacity. This stream launched on May 12th and has a continuous application intake until Thursday, October 28th. The MII stream also provides export and global market development funding for music managers. This is the focus for today's session, and Ward will touch on the details and deadlines in upcoming slides. We encourage you to, we definitely want you to review our program policies document for more specifics on our policies regarding respectful workplaces, diversity, and accessibility. There's a link to this document on page 3 of the program guidelines, and it can also be downloaded directly from the Music Industry Initiatives page on our website. All applicants must sign an applicant affidavit confirming that their company has both guiding principles and a process in place for maintaining a respectful workplace, which is one that values diversity and inclusion, dignity, courteous conduct, fairness, positive communication, and a professional working environment free from harassment and discrimination. The program policies document also outlines some key information regarding the application submission process, reporting requirements, and other obligations of successful applicants, and also contains a full sample template of the funding agreement. Ontario Creates is committed to helping to tangibly increase diversity, equity, and inclusion within the creative industries. Just yesterday, we were one of the signatories of the BDRB declaration to end anti-Black racism in the music industry. Our agency values and supports diversity and gender parity at all levels and business roles. We acknowledge that many communities continue to face systemic barriers that prevent them from participating meaningfully in these industries. As such, Ontario Creates applies a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion across multiple evaluation criteria for our programs. I'll touch on that towards the end of the presentation. Applicants proposing activities that support, reflect, and strengthen diversity and gender parity in Ontario are expected to tangibly demonstrate a genuine and sustained commitment to these equity-seeking communities. Furthermore, Ontario Creates encourages applications from companies that are led by Black and Indigenous individuals, people of color, Francophone individuals, and applicants that otherwise meet the provincial definition of diversity. You'll find this on page 2 of the program policies document, along with a definition of equity-seeking communities. Essentially, this includes communities that have faced historic, systemic, and social marginalization barriers based on factors such as disability, economic status, gender, race, sexual orientation, and transgender status. We encourage any stakeholders from any of these communities to contact the Ontario Music Office, ideally at least 3 weeks prior to the application deadline, to discuss. On that note, I will now pass it back to Ward.
Thanks, Aisha. All right, let's start with who can apply. So first of all, please review page 4 of the guidelines for the detailed explanation of the eligibility requirements, but the key points are going to be outlined here. So all eligible applicants must have a minimum revenue of $25,000 from core business activities, be incorporated in Canada and be in operation for at least 2 years, have a head office in Ontario, have key management personnel who are Canadian citizens or permanent residents living in Ontario, and being in good standing with Ontario Creates at the time of application. And as Aisha said earlier, with diversity, but first-time applicants as well, must contact the Ontario Music Office in advance of the deadline to confirm that you are indeed eligible. We recommend you do this at least 3 weeks prior to the application deadline. In addition to the applicant requirements listed on the previous slide, there are specific eligibility requirements for music management companies. Applicants must be managing 2 or more artists, although exceptions may apply to managers with 1 artist if that artist's career is at an advanced international level. 50% of your roster must be Canadian, and at least 1 artist must have commercial release within the last 24 months. In terms of what we consider to be core business activities for a music manager, we are looking at your operational focus and revenue being generated by guiding artists' careers, by overseeing day-to-day business affairs, advising and counseling artists, and engaging in marketing and promotion. As Aisha mentioned, exceptions to the eligibility requirements may be considered for BIPOC or Francophone applicants. The OMIF contribution may not exceed 50% of the total approved budget, and the maximum funding request is $10,000, which means we'll match your eligible and approved costs dollar for dollar. Applicants in this stream must apply by the deadline of Thursday, July 29th at 5 p.m. And the eligibility activity window is from August 1st, 2021 through to July 31st, 2022. The goal of the program is to support export and market development activities such as attendance at key industry markets and events, planned sales and business trips to key territories, and participation in trade missions. Activity supported in this program must contribute to your business and market development goals related to both artists and company growth. Specific costs include travel costs, accommodations, marketing costs, including registration and other participation expenses, per diems, and marketing costs, including design, production, and shipping materials created for the proposed activities. The application is only available through Ontario Create's application portal. If you're not already registered with a corporate profile, we encourage you to set one up as soon as possible. You can start the process by going to the online portal URL listed on this page. OAP instructions can be found on the MII GMD page of our website. But we'll just give a quick overview of the application. In section 1, company information requests basic company and contact information. This area is no different than previous year's applications. In section 2, company details request the organization to provide information such as ownership and key management personnel. Under financial profile, you will be asked for the company's total revenue for the past 2 fiscal years. Next, under company profile, you'll be asked to provide a company overview, including previous industry experience, profiles of key individuals, critical and commercial success, previous global market engagement, and any other relevant achievements. New for this year is an expanded maximum word count of 1,500 words. Also under company profile, you'll be asked for an outline, your overall global market development plan. Explain how the plan relates to your company's strategy for growth. Please be clear, succinct, and high level. The word count for this response is 1,000 words. The last section, part of section 2, are questions pertaining to your artist roster. How many artists are on your roster? Please list key artists and the percentage of Canadian artists. Finally, list one Canadian artist recording released within the last 24 months. You'll be asked for the artist, title, and release date. In section 3, you're requested to input the activity name and the activity type. Is it a business conference, festival, trade show, or other? You'll have the opportunity to elaborate on your initiative in the supplementary activity plans. A reminder that you can only submit a maximum of 5 activities. In section 4, you must acknowledge that your organization either has or will be able to obtain at least $2 million in commercial general liability insurance coverage before the legal grant agreement can be executed. Please note, this is now only an acknowledgement at the application stage. Successful applicants will still be required to provide a certificate of insurance at the time of contract execution. And finally, section 5. The supporting documents. The activity budget template will be discussed on the next slide. The activity plans will consist of 4 questions. Question 1 asks for a detailed description of the activity. If the activity is part of a broader initiative, describe the larger initiative and indicate how the activity fits within the company's global market development plan, i.e. objectives, rationale, and reason for selecting this market. Question 2 asks, does the company have a history of participating in this event or activity? If so, please detail past results. In question 3, we ask you to provide a list of potential and confirmed business meetings and/or contacts that are scheduled for the activity. And question 4 asks you to outline project results and indicate any background research that supports how the activity will be successful. This could be industry trends, competitive analysis, revenue targets. Next is your articles of incorporation. And then financial statements. While optional, corporate financial statements for the past 2 most recently completed fiscal years are requested. Financial statements should be supplied within 6 months following the end of a company's fiscal year. Notice to reader statements are preferred, however, internally prepared statements will be accepted. And next, please sign and submit an application affidavit confirming that applicant has in place both guiding principles and a process for maintaining a respectful workplace. This needs to be signed by your company's signing officer. And lastly, other applicable materials relevant to the activities that you would like to submit to strengthen your application, such as artist profiles, letters of support, business plans, marketing and communications plans, company budget, etc. Again, you're under no obligation to submit them. They're all completely optional. Next is the activity budget template. This activity budget template is quite simple. We don't require a financial plan in this stream. Pictured here is the activity budget. You simply need to complete the application sections which relate directly to the eligible cost, and totals are auto-calculated and appear in the budget summary. And here's the budget summary. All you need to do on this tab is complete your company name and your total funding request to the maximum of $10,000. And a reminder that you are limited to 5 activities. And now I'm going to turn it back to Aisha to take you through the assessment criteria.
Thank you, Ward. We're blowing through this presentation at warp speed, so we'll get you out of here in really good time today. So speaking of the assessment process, we encourage you to review these in detail on page 6 and 7 of the guidelines that provides you with further details on the pieces of your application that we'll be assessing you on. These are the things that we take into consideration when assessing your application. So it's a good idea to review this as you're preparing your application, and feel free to refer to it as many times as necessary. The first thing we're looking at is your track record. We're 30%. Does your organization demonstrate that it has organizational and financial capacity to effectively execute the activities? And what are your previous successes? How present is diversity among your leadership, staff, or contract employees? Next is overall proposal. Is the proposal thorough, well-written, and practical? Are your proposed activities and budgets feasible, appropriate, and achievable? Have you included additional documentation to help your business case for OMIF support? And does your proposal demonstrate thoughtful consultation, collaboration, and participation of equity-seeking communities? Then we're looking at economic and cultural impact, worth 25%. Are the expected results well documented in the application, including a description of tangible, measurable, and realistic goals, and a clear explanation of anticipated return on investment? Describe the potential to achieve measurable, critical, and/or commercial success of your artists. Sustainability. Does your proposal demonstrate forward-thinking strategic planning, particularly in light of the COVID-19 crisis? Resilience is certainly something that we look at as well. Do the activities position your company for long-term growth and sustainability? And finally, emerging artists. To what degree does your application focus on supporting and developing emerging artists? So we encourage you to keep these questions in mind as you're crafting your application. All of the assessment criteria tie back to the program objectives. So applications that speak directly to these objectives will rank higher than those that do not. You'll note that diversity, equity, and inclusion criteria are now embedded across multiple assessment sections. Within your application, and particularly in the activity plans, please be sure to speak to any tangible initiatives that your company has already undertaken or plans to undertake with respect to improving or further embedding DE&I within your operations and activities. Applicant companies that are owned or led by members of equity-seeking communities may, if appropriate or relevant, choose to speak to their lived experiences as it relates to their operations. This is a shift that's reflective of our intentional attempt to lead to more BIPOC-owned companies being funded, as well as encouraging all companies across Ontario's music ecosystem to take further steps towards increasing diversity among their staff, artist rosters, and communities, and operational practices in order to achieve greater representation of equity-seeking communities. These are broader program objectives that we trust will lead to a more diverse and equitable music industry. So this approach takes more of an emphasis on DE&I across the board, rather than having it as a separate value, which we previously did. And it underscores our expectation that this should be an upfront consideration for companies across various criteria. Ultimately, applications that best demonstrate this commitment across the board will score higher than those who do not. So before we move on to your questions, I just want to remind you that this is a competitive process, and the number of applicants who will receive funding and the amount of funding that is awarded is dependent on the quality of the applications submitted, as well as the individual needs of each applicant. So with that, Ward and I are happy to answer your questions, and thanks very much for your attention.